I just wanted to come on and talk to some of you who have been calling us about kitchen cabinets. A lot of questions come up regularly on a daily basis, and I just like to take care of my clients. So yeah, so I just wanted to talk about kitchen cabinets, and so pretty much everything you need to know about painting them, spray painting them, everything from cost to what's involved, process, and whether you should do it or whether you shouldn't, and different options involved as well, and timelines, and whether you can do it yourself even, and yeah, and if you can hire someone as well, is I'll talk about as well. So anyone who has questions, please feel free to put in the chat down below, and I'll be happy to answer them. In the meantime, I'll just go through some of the most asked questions, and most often is they'll ask me how much it costs, and that's a great question. It depends, but usually our prices range from between $85 and $100 per drawer or door, and goes as high as 100 to 125. $150 for a really gigantic door, but that's usually the few and far between. Usually if you're thinking somewhere around $85 to $125 a door, it's pretty realistic. The other thing, so if you want to look at it more simplistically, the typical, like we're in Toronto, so typical home in Toronto has between 20 and 30 doors. So you're probably looking somewhere starting around $2,500 and going, I'd say the average is 3,000 to 3,500 is our average kitchen. And our bigger kitchen in Toronto would be somewhere between 4,000 and 6,500. But those are usually 1 in 10 jobs is in that range. The majority of the jobs are somewhere between 3 and 4,000, if you can imagine, in Toronto. Typical home in Toronto is about 1,500 square feet, so that gives you an idea of the types of kitchens we deal with, and 20 to 30 doors. The other question is, what's the advantage of painting them? And there's several. The main advantage is it upgrades your kitchen at a fraction of the cost of renovating them. It's clean. It's a lot of time people are tired of their old stained cabinets, and they're darker usually, so they want to open up the kitchen, make it look more open, more modern, and they also want to clean it up. A lot of times it's oil, there's lots of oils on it, and they just want to clean it up and make it nice and fresh. But the main advantage is that it completely modernizes your kitchen in less than 7 to 10 days. And it feels like, a lot of customers tell me this, that it feels like they renovated the kitchen even though they didn't. But it feels like it because it looks like a completely new space, and it makes everything else look better. So in that way, it's one of the most cost-effective ways to get return on investment. For example, what you're investing in it versus what you're getting out of it. Two most valued, like when you're selling your house, for example, valued ROI, what you get back on your investment, are kitchens and bathrooms. So those are the two areas where you're definitely going to get your money back, whereas something like ceilings, basements, you're probably not going to get as much return on investment. So it's great for investments. It's great for making the house look and feel like it's new, even though it isn't. And it's a great way to upgrade your kitchen versus having to renovate it, and make it look completely more modern. And yeah, basically, especially in the winter, a lot of times people are tired of being inside so much, and even because of COVID, people are noticing it more. It's a great way to add a lot of spice to your interior and not have to spend very much. Okay, the other questions they ask is, what's the process? In other words, how long are we there, and what's involved? Usually most of our kitchens, we actually take all the doors and drawers to our own in-house facility and get them factory sprayed there. Basically what we do is we buff them down, we prime them with a shellac primer, with a special bond primer, and then we spray 2 to 3 coats of finish coat on top of that. And so that's our process. And then so we show up the first day in less than 2 hours, 3 hours max. We have your doors gone. You could basically have your kitchen for that whole week that we're gone, and you just won't have doors on them. And then of course we come back in less than 7 to 10 days with factory sprayed doors and drawers, and then we paint the in-house, like the stationary items, on site, which takes no more than a day and a half usually for a typical kitchen, sometimes 2 days maximum. So really you're spending less than 2 days maximum on site, sometimes 2.5 absolute max. But it's not very, in terms of like especially COVID friendly, it's not very like COVID, it's very COVID safe that way. We're not on site for very much time, and we're in and out pretty quickly, and we're only segregated to that one area, which is a huge bonus too. So as long as you stay clear of the kitchen, we can go do our thing, and in less than 2 days you can have your kitchen on site items done as well. How long does it take? Basically, I just answered that, 7 to 10 days. If it's in a rush, like for example, a lot of buyers and sellers, they're on a rush to put it on the market, I could get it done as soon as 3 days, but usually not less than that. And the reason why is because drying times, you want to give your doors enough time to dry in between coats. And that's very important. You don't want to cheat that process, because then you get chipping and warranty issues, and we prefer not to do it quickly that way. So 3 days would be the soonest. 7 to 10 days is pretty much the norm that most clients don't mind. And on site, 2.5 days, 2 days, more likely 1.5 to 2 days, but the longest you'd ever have to be on site is 2.5 days. Top colors used, that's a great question. One of the biggest hurdles that customers have is they don't know what colors to use. So what I usually do is I'll usually bring a couple samples and show them, and if they don't like that, I can even bring more samples. But usually the first few are they usually it's a bullseye from there once they see the whites. And the most common whites are CC20 Decorator's White from Benjamin Moore. We also use CC30 Oxford White. Another white that is commonly used, Chantilly Lace OC65, and Simply White as well is a common one as well. For grays, we've used Silver Satin for the light grays, Silver Satin OC26. I'm doing this all by memory. The other one we use is Heather, I believe it's called Stonington Gray, or HC170. And for darker grays, we've gone HC178, I believe it is, Charcoal Slate. And the other one we use is, I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's, I have it here somewhere. It's a dark gray, but I'll come up. Oh, that's what it's called. Wrought iron. That's what it's called. It's a really, really, really dark gray. It's actually a little less. It's a little less than black, but it has enough charcoal gray in it that it's not completely black. So people really like that color. Can we do other things besides wood? The ideal situation is if you have solid oak doors, because then you get the best finish, and it still looks like wood even though it's completely covered by paint. So you get the best of both worlds. But we also have done it on MDF, veneer, vinyl. We've done it on different surfaces, and it still looks equally as good. And to also answer your question, if they're damaged, like for example, if the doors are cracked or it's weird, if like the stain's worn away, and even if they're a little bit like banged into, we fill them, we sand them, we caulk them, we prime them. So 100% we do paint that. The only thing we don't want to probably get into too much is if they're MDF and if they're particle board and if they're completely falling apart. In that case, it probably doesn't make sense to spray them. You might want to brush and roll them because it's a lot cheaper, but the finish isn't good as good of course. But then again, so we do pretty much most types of different surfaces besides oak wood, but just be careful if it's like a MDF and if it's actually breaking apart. In that case, it might be cheaper to go the brush and roll technique, because a spray technique is obviously the best. It's the best finish. It looks like factory. It looks like you got completely new cabinets, as I said, for around $3,000 to $4,000. But if you're spending that much on a damaged door that's so worn out and kind of warping, then it's not going to really, in my opinion, be the best solution for you. Advantage of spraying versus brushing and rolling are pretty obvious. Spraying professionally, professional look, it's finished, it's completely, what you get basically is a factory sprayed door. And that to me is what most people are looking for, especially when their kitchens are their most prized possession. So that's great. Brushing and rolling works also, but keep in mind, you see a little bit of the roller marks as well. You can tell a little bit if you compare them side by side, but it's still pretty good. And where you might look at brushing and rolling also is if you have a really old kitchen that's already been brushed and rolled before, and a spray is going to make it look better, but not that much better. Usually in East York, there's a lot of these types of homes, as well as some rental units where they've painted them. You could tell if someone's painted them by brush and roll. You can obviously tell the brush marks. And in that case, maybe it's better to brush and roll them as opposed to spray them and save money as well. The cost of brushing and rolling versus spraying is a little over half. So you could save about half and a little bit more if you decide to go the brush and roll technique. But the majority of our customers that come to us want, they want a perfect, like they want a professionally sprayed factory door, and that's what we do for them as well. But we can do either method, as I said before, at a little over half the cost. Can my cabinet doors be fixed, for example, if they're damaged and if they don't open and close properly? That's pretty common, although sometimes they're just a little bit off, like they've been bent, the hinge has been bent down a little bit, and in that case, we definitely fix those as well. The one thing we don't do is we're not cabinet makers, so let's say if you want an extra cabinet set of cabinet doors on the side or whatever, we don't necessarily specialize in that, but there are cabinet makers that do, and once they do it for you, we can obviously install them for you. So definitely we can fix the doors. If you have doors that are damaged, that don't open and close properly, or they're bent out of shape or something like that in terms of the hardware, we definitely fix those as well. The other question clients ask me is hardware. Can they change their hardware? In most cases, they do actually. They have usually gold, which was kind of an 80s thing. Back in the 80s and 90s, they used to put a lot of gold and bronze hardware. And to answer the question about that, yes, 100%. We definitely have a carpenter on staff to change them. It's a little more expensive. It ranges anywhere from $600 to $1,000 depending on how big your cabinets are, how many cabinet doors there are. But the one place is if you can save is if you can find the exact size hinge, like for example, the handles as well as knobs. If you can find the exact size knobs and handles, it will not be any more expensive. So the best thing to do there is if you want to change your hardware and you're not sure, bring a sample of that to wherever you're buying the hardware from. Usually it's IKEA, Home Depot, Lowe's, even on Amazon, they sell them as well. You can buy hardware there, and then of course test them to make sure that they fit the hole that you have existing, and that way it will not cost you extra. So if you get the exact size, in most cases if it's a 2 screw type knob, it's hard to find the exact same, but for the single ones, it's a lot easier to find. Then yes, we can install them and it's no extra cost. And make sure you tell us that before we obviously start your cabinets, so we take them off, put them aside, and then put the new ones on after we factory spray them. The other question sometimes clients ask me is, can I do it myself or hire someone else? My answer is generally no, and I'm not saying that just because I'm a painter, but if you're brushing and rolling, yes, sorry, let me clarify. If you're brushing and rolling your doors, then yes, you can paint it yourself. For spraying, I generally don't recommend that, just because spraying is a really, really niche thing and it requires years and years of experience to do it properly. Last thing you want to be doing is ruining your 10 to 20 or $30,000 kitchen by doing a bad spray job. So if it's a spraying factory finish that you want, I do not recommend it. And if it's something like brushing and rolling and you're just kind of like setting it up to sell, or you're just kind of cleaning up your apartment and it's already been brushed and rolled, then yes, you could definitely do it yourself. And if I hire someone, what should I ask and what should you look for? We have whole informations on blogs and the videos on that, but in a nutshell, you want to make sure they're insured. You want to make sure they've been around for a long time. Have before and after pictures, lots of videos, content on that. And the reason why is because, as I said, professionally spraying your cabinets is a really niche thing, and not everyone can do it. In fact, I've been in the business 33 years, and I've met less than 10 really good sprayers in Toronto, and I've met hundreds and hundreds of painters. So, to be honest, you should be careful. Make sure they're really, really schooled and specialized at that, and know what they're doing. Because as I said, you're dealing with a 10 to 20, $30,000 kitchen. You don't want to ruin on a bad spray job. And obviously, make sure they have insurance, WSIB, general liability insurance, criminal background checks, and they've been around. And obviously, the warranty is very important. We have a 2-year warranty, and this is very important. Warranty is very important, and I've actually browsed a lot of other painters because I'm in groups with painters, and they don't issue their warranties on their website. It's actually really important they warranty them, because, as I mentioned, you don't want to rush the process. As I said, we have a minimum 3-day process, because you want to spray in between, like let them cure in between each coat. And by rushing that, if you like, for example, if you buff them, prime them, and then paint them all in one day, that can actually cause damage in terms of cause you harm, because basically what it does is the primer doesn't have enough time to cure, and then when the finished coat goes on, it basically, when you go to touch it, it always peels off. So it's really, really important to make sure they have a written warranty. In my view, they should warranty it for at least 1 year, but 2 years is what we warranty it for. And that's against any damage whatsoever. The only thing we don't warranty it against, obviously, if you take a hockey stick to it, or if you accidentally hit it with a knife, or certainly around the handles, a lot of times your nails might consistently hit it. In that case, we don't warranty it. But in that case, we have your colors on site. So if you say, Brian, there's just 2 or 3 doors I need resprayed because I've damaged them for whatever reason, we'll actually, instead of charging you the full amount, we'll do a per unit cost. So it won't be that expensive for you to do any touch-ups or any warranties if that were to come down the road, even down the road from 3-4 years later. In most cases, the kitchen cabinet should last you minimum 5 years, depends on how rough you are with them, but more likely between 8 and 10 years plus. And that's for a typical kitchen, like I said, where it's normal wear and tear. But obviously, if you have dogs and kids running into it every day, it might not last as long. The other question people ask about is color, and I've already addressed that, but the one thing that just came to mind was a lot of people have islands, and homeowners have islands, and they're asking me if I should do it the same color. This is actually just a new thing in 2020. I find that a lot of my clients have been changing the colors, and I think it looks great. So if you have, like, let's say the island a darker color, and then the upper doors or the upper part of the cabinets a lighter color, I think it looks great. And as I said, I already recommended some colors for you, and I can even help consult you there. So if you do decide to call us, I'll definitely be able to help you. And if there's any questions, I'll just check down in the chat thing to make sure if there's any questions there. I'll be happy to answer. You can always call us directly at 416-494-9095. Get me directly, and I'll be happy to consult with you over the phone. And or send us an email at sales@homepainterstoronto.com, and we'll be able to happy to help you as well. So if you have any questions, feel free to email. I think I answered the bulk of the types of clients questions that come at me, and hopefully this was helpful. And if you have any questions, call me directly, and we'll talk soon. Have a great day.